Well, let me welcome all of you to chat with Matt. We're very honored to have Jerry Mills of B2B CFO as our guest today. Jerry's going to talk about a topic that's, in my opinion, on everybody's minds these days, and that's starting your own consulting practice. Jerry's been at this, stop me if I'm wrong, but I believe since 1987,
Mhm.
and that's a long time to be doing anything.
Yeah.
So and I've known Jerry since 2007. I've heard him speak at the B2B CFO national meeting several times,
Mhm.
and talked to him in between on occasion. And he always has a lot to say and a lot of wisdom to impart to everyone. Jerry's in his typical manner has outlined five major things that he wants you to understand, and I'm really just going to play George Burns to his Gracie Allen. I'm just going to let him talk and tell you all the things that he believes you should know and understand in considering becoming a fractional CFO. So, Jerry, I'm going to just turn it over to you. We start every meeting with people doing their 90-second announcement. And so why don't you just give us a little background on Jerry Mills?
Um, Jerry Mills. I am been with this firm since 1987. Prior to that, I was an experienced manager with Arthur Andersen. Greatest achievements in life, married to the beautiful Christine, four children and 14 grandchildren, and love this company. And we're like a 30-year overnight success. So that's about it.
Yep. What is it? An overnight success, 30 years in the making.
Yeah. Yeah. Author of several books and things like that. Just things.
Well, Jerry, in Texas, if it's true, it ain't bragging. So feel free to have at it. I haven't published any books. You have. Um, why don't you? The list is. I know the danger zone. Why don't you tell us the books?
Uh, The Danger Zone, that's a highly acclaimed book. It teaches business owners how to spend their time, how to get out of managing, doing administrative work, and it teaches them how to spend their time. The Exit Strategy Handbook came out in 2013. It's now an award-winning book and on a sixth edition, and it teaches business owners the process to build value in their company so it can eventually, and the process to sell it. Usually when they read that book, they sort of throw their hands up and say, well, I understand what this is, but I can't do it by myself. So they usually,
Well, that's actually what happens with most people when
yeah,
there are a lot of people who are experts and they seem to think if they tell too much, people will do it on their own. And the reality is what you just explained. They realize the enormity of it, and they found somebody who actually knows the answer.
yeah. And if I could, my favorite story, my third book is actually my favorite book. It tells stories of business owners that I've worked with, one that was murdered, one that committed suicide. It has a good exits, bad exits. And at the beginning of the book, I tell the story of JFK Jr. He and his wife, Caroline, died in a plane accident. And I sort of do an analogy of reading the instruments on an airplane to reading financial statements and things like that. So one day I received a phone call from a business owner. He said, "Hey, Jerry, just got your book, Avoiding the Danger Zone." I said, "Okay." And I said, "You want to comment on it?" Yeah. He said, "Yeah, I'm sitting in an airplane ready to take off. And I'm so scared. I think I'm going to get off." He said, "This is terrifying." But anyway, he read the book and loved it. So I get calls all the time from business owners. Sort of cool, sort of
It
a
is. It is.
peer level type conversations that are sort of fun. They're normal human beings like everybody else, same fears, same anxieties.
Uh, Much like me, Jerry is in the business of helping people be successful. And that's always uh,
Mhm.
a warm fuzzy. So why don't we get started here? I know you want to talk about CFOs and the 10,000 rule, and that's a good place to get started.
Okay, well, let's just start with that. Uh, Most of us are familiar with the book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. It's the number one best-selling book. The subtitle of the book is The Story of Success. And in chapter 2, it's a fascinating story. He documents what he calls the 10,000 hour rule. And in that, he gives some very fun and interesting anecdotal, I think, stories of people who have become masters of what they do. And the reason I bring that up with CFOs is because CFOs, Matt, they understand the 10,000 hour rule as it relates to their careers. They go to college or colleges, they get good grades, they often, most time, get advanced degrees or like an MBA, or they become certified like a CPA, CMA, CFA, whatever. And then they begin as a staff accountant. And after so many years, obviously more than 10,000 hours, they become experts at what they do. They are the best at what they do.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about them when you study them individually, and I've talked to hundreds and I've taught hundreds. I taught hundreds how to make millions of dollars. Just got a testimonial from a partner who said since he's joined the firm, he's earned $4.5 million, okay, using our program. So if you study them, they understand the 10,000 hour rule as it relates to their career. And then what happens, they just experience life. And during that journey, a lot of them think, well, maybe I ought to leave the W-2 world and become a consultant. Maybe I should do that. I know so much. Maybe I can help business owners not make the same mistakes I've seen others. Maybe I can just really add value. It's usually the term I hear the most, Matt, is maybe I can add value to the business community, which is a great value to do.
Yeah.
So they ponder that and they sort of kick back the W-2 versus the consultant. And eventually there comes in what I call the fear factor. And the fear factor is, and I've heard this hundreds of times, they tell me, Jerry, I can't sell. Well, that's not true. They can sell. They've been selling since their first job interview, right? They can sell. They just haven't learned how to sell and gain clients. So they've done the 10,000 hour rule in their career, but they haven't done the 10,000 hour rule in marketing and sales. All right. And what I tell them, look, there's a difference between an ability and a skill. And I tell them the truth. You're so accomplished. You have the ability. You just have not yet been taught the skill.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them don't want to invest, or they don't want to spend the money or time to learn the skill set. And so they make decisions. The first cut, Matt, is usually on the decision is they decide to stay in the W-2 world. And they sort of forfeit their dream of becoming a self-employed consultant. And then eventually they face, as you know, you could write a book on this, age discrimination and other issues, and they get in their 50s and 60s, and they experience a lot of pain because their hearts really are not in the W-2 world, but they're there because of the fear factor of going out and finding clients. Then we have many who say, okay, I'm going to leave the W-2 world. I'm going to become a consultant. And then they make a series of mistakes. And those mistakes are all related to around the 10,000 hour rule, meaning they don't want to invest in themselves to learn the 10,000 hour rule as it relates to marketing, sales, and business development. They don't want to do that. So they do shortcuts. Just briefly, the first cut is usually, if you go on Google, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of fractional CFOs. Now, most of these fractional CFO firms, Matt, they act like a Robert Half. They have full-time salespeople, right? Mm-hmm. And they have programs and knowledge to, they know who the business owners are in the community, right? And now they're very expensive. So a lot of these CFOs who are afraid to learn how to gain clients because they tell themselves again, I can't sell, which is not true. By the way, my greatest sales was to my wife, Christine. I was shocked that she said yes. But anyway, so they.
This is, if I can interrupt you for a second, this is exactly what happens with people when they lose their job for the first time. I mean, really lose their job for the first time in their middle age. They start out at a CPA firm, they end up working for their client, they move up in the ranks. Suddenly they their boss gets fired and they get fired, and they say, gee, I wish I'd been doing more networking, and they don't know anything about how to look for work, which is where our networking group has come in. The sign over the door says we meet by accident. They talk to 5 friends. Finally, they talk to a few people, and they join our group, and we try to educate them on that process. Your organization takes them to a means of implementing their dream,
Yes.
is being
Yes.
self-employed, because
We
it's a
have,
mystery world. You do,
yeah, we demystify it. We have the training, and we support them. Thank you for that comment. It's totally true. So what these CFOs do is they join these fraction CFO firms, which operate like a Robert Half. They go out and get the client, and these CFOs pay up to 50% of what they earn. So over the next 10 years, they may pay $1 million. They may pay $1 million or $1.5 million to somebody to get clients for them instead of doing it themselves. Now, the second cut on the 10,000 hour rule is related to sales and business development. What CFOs do is they say, well, I'm not going to pay that kind of money. I'm smarter than that. Okay. And what they do is they go in, they optimize their LinkedIn, or they create a basic website, and they sit back and wait for business to come to them. Well, Matt, you and I both know there's more than 500,000 CFOs on LinkedIn, and nobody's going to go find a dinky little website. Business doesn't work that way. And so what they do is over a couple of years, they eat up their savings, and then they get discouraged and they go back to the W-2 world. Okay. Then the third type on the 10,000 hour rule is, Matt, we learned, and every CFO learns this when you go through college. I remember marketing 301, what basic decisions making by consumers: quality, service, value, and price. Well, these CFOs have not learned how to sell value, service, and quality, so they just lower their price. And usually they're charging about 75% less than we charge. Okay.
Mhm.
So they undersell themselves. So they get business, but they're more viewed as like a bookkeeper, an accountant, staff accountant type thing. So the 10,000 hour rule works every time. But the biggest mistake I see with CFOs who want to go into consulting, Matt, is they don't take the time and money and invest in themselves to learn how to gain clients. Because we tell them, we have a training manual, and we tell them you can sell, and we itemize all the ways they've sold. Right? They got their first job, then they became CFO, and they're selling to a bank, they're selling to a chairman of a board, to a CEO. They're selling all the time. They just haven't learned how to do business development in terms of selling CFO services or CFO consulting to the world.
I do recommend to the people, I have a group that I have meetings with once a month, and we talk about how to start your own consulting practice. And I tell them it's not totally stupid to join one of these other firms and have them find work for you to learn, because it is a big difference between being an employee and being a consultant.
Oh yeah.
And some of the things that you need to learn, you can learn on somebody else's nickel until you made the decision you want to do this on your own. But they value all of our friends, because they do know how to do the CFO thing. They have the 10,000 hours. You're training them to find business, which is another skill that people need. Just like networking, people need to learn how to do that if they're going to be successful being self-employed and on their own.
Right. Right. Yes, a skill set.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's investing in themselves to learn this side of it, because they can do that. In fact, Matthew Pollard wrote a great book. It's called The Introvert's Edge to Networking. And he basically says, it's a great book for CFOs to read. He basically says that an introvert, if they learn how to do business development correctly, can actually be better salespeople than the extroverts. Okay. And quite frankly, I'm an introvert myself, so I can attest to that. Okay.
I think there's an element, the joke, you can tell an extroverted accountant, he's the one who's looking at someone else's shoes instead of his own.
Yeah,
we do lean towards being a little shy, and
yeah.
And that's just normal. We didn't go into accounting to become backslapping salespeople, but that's not really where professional sales sits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I view, the way we train, we view ourselves more like a medical doctor, right? We don't want to, if we have an ailment, either us or a loved one, we don't want to go to a medical doctor and have the MD tell us all about their medical school training and their residency and how great they are. We want them just to listen to us and try to solve our pain, right? And so we just say, well, why don't we just be like MDs and just listen? to people. So it's really not that hard. It's just a skill set to be learned.
Yeah. Well, I think when we talked yesterday, you talked about the fact that people confuse business development with an interview. And an interview, no, in an interview where you're looking for a full-time job, you are the product and you're trying to sell yourself. But even in that context, I tell people who are interviewing that they need to ask a lot of good questions first, so you know what you're selling into. And that's a
Yes.
tough thing for new salespeople to learn.
Yes. In fact, one of the number one problems we have when we go through our training process
Yeah.
is getting CFOs to not talk about themselves because they're used to it in the W-2 world, right?
Yes.
And they may go to a job interview and they talk for 30 or 60 minutes about themselves, and they talk to somebody else in the same company to somebody else. So they're used to that.
Yeah.
What we do is say, look, if you're talking to, if you're doing correct business development, and you're talking one-on-one with somebody, maybe a business owner, maybe a banker, an attorney who's going to refer you to a business owner, you really only have about 30 minutes of time or their attention, because
Yes.
people lose, if they get bored, you lose attention. So what we teach is if you are going to properly network, instead of talking about yourself for 20, 30 minutes or so, boil it down to 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Now, Matt, I just did mine before this a couple of days ago before we met. I can tell about my education and my career in front of people in 15.62 seconds. All right, so it can be done. I do that, and I've earned millions of dollars serving clients. So yeah, what CFOs need to do is learn how not to talk. Well, they just need to learn the skill set. And part of the skill set is stop talking about yourself. Okay.
Yep.
And then basically what we do is, well, we make sure they understand the three basics in 20 seconds or less. And if they want to know more, then we can go out to dinner in a few days, or they can go to our website and they can read our bios and see see where we got our degrees and see all the industries that we're experts in. They can do that themselves. But right now, we want them to talk about themselves, not us.
I think what's not well recognized is that people like doing business with people they know and like. And the first question that the person you're talking to has, if you're going to do fractional work for them, is, do they really like you? And are they comfortable with listening to you and taking your advice? You have to make that personal connection first. And
Yes.
the joke. Enough about you. Let's talk about me.
It's so true.
Business owners want to talk about their business. This is why they're in business, right?
Right.
I'm sure you've experienced that. People love their businesses. That's the way they work 80 hours a week.
It's their passion. See, it's a grandbaby. Yeah. They want to talk about it. But if a CFO is talking about himself or herself the entire time, it crowds out the ability for that other person to talk about themselves because when they talk, they're usually kernels of truth that we hear, and we say, aha, maybe I could come back and make a proposal and help solve that problem so this business owner can move on. Okay, so it's 20 we call it 20-second rule. So we talk about the 10,000-hour rule and the 20-second rule, and they both work every time they try.
They're very important. So now you've got me sold. I'm considering about running my own business. We talked yesterday about a written business plan for yourself. Yes.
Well, let me do another analogy. CFOs are so good with the 10,000-hour rule that it just comes with the territory. People in the community learn about them, friends, members of their church, family, others, and they go to the CFO and they say, look, I'm thinking about starting a business. And would you help me? Would you listen to my plan? Would you help me give advice? Would you give advice to me on what I should do? I mean, Matt, it just comes with the territory. I'm sure every CFO that is listening, will listen to this, will be nodding their head. Yeah, they've had that happen. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what does a CFO expect to see or hear? Well, they want to know, what are they going to sell? Who are their competitors? What value do they bring to the consumer? And then along with that, they expect to see projections, and particularly they want to see the next 2 or 3 years of projections, and they want to focus on, the CFO does, on working capital. We never want to advise somebody to go on business and have them run out of working capital. We don't do that, right?
Right.
So that's what we do, is because the CFOs are so good at what they do. Right now, here's my experience in doing this for more than 30 years. I have yet to see one CFO who's called to get advice or join our firm who has a written business plan, and they don't have projections going out. Actually, they expect us to do their work for them. I don't know how much they need, to pay the rent or whatever, their family or whatever. They should do that. But I have yet to see one CFO do that. Okay, so my advice is do that. If you're thinking about going out and being a CFO consultant, have a written business plan, have projections, know where your working capital is going to come from if there's deficiencies in cash flow, and then run that by experts before you jump in. I mean, that's what we'd expect others to do. So, Matt, that's the saying. You like old sayings, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think in developing your own personal business plan, the thing that I learned, I was treasurer of my congregation for several years, and the thing I learned was the expenses are all going to come in. It's the revenue we have to be mindful of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you at least have your expense profile, your mortgage, your food, your clothing, your vacations, whatever it is, if you know those numbers, now you can kind of see how much business you're going to have to generate to survive and over what time period. You're starting with a pot of cash, it's going to bleed out pretty quick. We all know about well, I'm sorry, I lost the word. It's our burn rate. If you at least know that to start, now you can talk about, I think, well, when we start talking about business development in a few minutes, at least you know your burn rate. You've got to start there.
Yep. Yep. So that's what we recommend: a written business plan and including projections, working capital. Just do that.
Yeah.
To make sure you're taking care of yourself and your family. It's not hard to do, but it's a step that most CFOs skip, quite frankly.
Yeah. I enjoyed your conversation yesterday about Christine, and when you told her you were going to quit your regular job. This is we'll talk about that at the end, but
Okay.
it's all part of letting the crew know you can still feed them is key.
It is key.
So, was there anything else you wanted to add about the written business plan?
No,
For someone
just do it.
thinking about starting their own practice.
Yeah, just do it.
It's vitally important to be smart about these things and to understand your real expense base. A lot of people don't. They got money in the cigar box and they're happy.
Right. And Matt, speaking of that, there are so many. If you type in written business plan on a search engine, there's so many you can download and give you really good ideas. Who are the main competitors in your region? What do the consumers look for in your region or your city? And there it's just a regular business plan. The same thing we'd want to do with a client, right? Or an employer. If we'd say you got to have a business plan, well, again, why not us? Why shouldn't we do that? So I highly recommend that. It's not hard to do, really.
Nothing. I believe nothing is impossible, but you better know the odds against you and how you're going to deal with them.
I agree.
Once you know, you can. You said about to knock them off the list one at a time.
Yeah, I heard.
Let's talk about business development, because I think that's the one question I get more than any other when I talk to my people who are considering starting their own practice. Where am I going to find clients?
Okay. Yes, that is usually after they say I can't sell. Where do I find clients?
After we explain to them that they can in fact sell, and most financial people have been selling something so difficult to sell, this other part is relatively easy by comparison.
Oh, absolutely. So basically what you're asking is, if the CFO has put in the 10,000 hours or more on the CFO side, how do they learn the 10,000 hours on the selling and marketing side, right? My recommendation is to pay somebody to teach you how to do it. Okay. Now, CFOs are smart. They can do this by themselves. But I tell them it's going to take you 10,000 hours. In other words, you're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for the next 5 or 6 years until you learn how to do it. So why not just learn how to do that? That's what I did. Okay. I'll pass up right now the story about telling the beautiful Christine I was leaving a W-2 job. But what we decided to do was she was concerned that I didn't know how to get clients. Okay. And she was right. So yeah, I knew I
Had you
couldn't
been
sell
doing
it.
some of that in the world of the accounting firm?
Well, I learned very quickly. I could not sell the way we did at Arthur Andersen. Our sales process at Arthur Andersen, my next step was being partner. And basically we'd go to prospects and say, well, you're going to do an IPO, you need us. You need this bank loan, you need to hire us. You need to buy out other owners, you need us. So I learned very quickly, if you're a single shingle or with a small company, you cannot sell that way. You have to,
Yes, right.
You have to go through a process to find out their needs, and then humbly, and I
Almost visible behind you is the big CPA firm name, right?
Yeah, yeah,
and it's gone.
Yeah, yeah. So that didn't work. So what I did was I invested in, and quite frankly, we could not afford the money to have me go through this extensive training on how to do networking. But you know what? We got it, and we did it, and the ROI was tremendous. Okay.
Yeah.
So my advice to somebody who wants to start being a CFO consultant is invest in yourself and learn how to do it. And you're not going to learn by reading a book. Okay, that's out. You need somebody. You need human beings to teach you. You need forums. You need someone to follow up with you and talk to you. You need mentors. You need people to help you get through this, because the ebbs and flows of being a CFO consultant can be dramatic. Okay, so my advice on business development: don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, why reinvent the wheel? Why take 5 years, 10,000 hours, and lose 100,000 a year? Well, after 5 years, that's $500,000, right? That's a lot of money to lose, right? And so why not just find somebody that train and go out and make some money? So that's my advice on the business.
Where do your partners tend to find business? I tell people lawyers are totally useless. They never help you. They pretend to help, but they never really help you. But I believe commercial bankers and maybe even small CPA firms. Where have your partners found?
Well, that's a great question. We have empirical data on that. We have surveys since 2018.
Somehow I knew you did.
Yeah. So we know we have the top 20 list of where we get clients, the top 20, right? Now, the top 10 provide 85% of our business. Now, what's interesting, when we talk about where to get business, what is important to learn, if you can find somebody who's competent and knows empirical data, you want to know where to go. And also, Matt, you want to know where not to go. For example, I talked to a CFO, really nice guy in Oklahoma about a couple months ago. And he decided he didn't join our firm, didn't get our training, decided to do it on his own. So he decided to write a check for $8,000 to go to a trade show to get clients. And I told him, I said, you're going to get 0 clients. And I talked to him later, he got 0 for that $8,000. And so we don't get business from trade shows. We do not get business with business owners by contacting them on LinkedIn. That's a myth. You're not going to get, we have 0. Okay. Because business owners, CEOs like me, we don't use LinkedIn. Okay. So this is a hint there.
Yeah.
We know what the top 10 are. Probably 8 or 10% come from our websites, our company. Networking groups, coaching groups, attorneys, bankers are big, CPAs, wealth managers. Now, there's a difference between a wealth manager and a financial planner. Wealth managers and financial planners, CVAs, certified valuation appraisers. We have a list empirically of where we get our referrals. But before you go talk to them, you got to know what to say and what not to say. And that goes back to the 20 seconds. You can't go talk about yourself. You have to, with those professionals, know how to add value to them so they will pick up the phone and introduce you to their customers or clients. Bankers call their people customers, and everybody else calls their clients. Okay, so yeah, we in networking and proper networking, we know exactly where to go, where not to go. Most CFOs are surprised at trade shows, LinkedIn, Chamber of Commerce. You're not going to get any business at the Chamber of Commerce. That's a waste of time. So yeah, and that's part of the training, part of the business plan is where to go to find the clients, and also where not to go. Okay.
Yeah, no, knowing what not to do is as important as knowing where to focus your energy. So it's only just as your analogy about the amount of time you have in talking to a business owner. You don't want to waste a lot of time talking about yourself. The same thing goes with your time blocks in promoting your practice. If you're wasting time, LinkedIn and so forth, that's a lot of time and a lot of expense often. Like going to a trade show is a big commitment.
It is, and if I could tell you just secretly, I don't think anybody else is listening.
Who would I tell, Jerry?
The reason we know
30,000 people.
The reason we know we don't get business from trade shows is, one, we have surveys like our survey we did in September of 24. We had 100% of all of our clients where we got them. Okay, 0 from trade shows. We have invested since about 2010 more than $350,000 in trade shows. 0 clients. Now it's good for branding if you have a national name like us. Okay, so our people go in, oh, I've heard of you. You know, they don't really know where. But most CFOs who do this, they're either single shingles or they're with a really small company, and branding is not important to them because they don't brand like we do.
Yes.
But 0, it's a horrible investment if you want to try to get clients. I'm talking about trade shows and things of the like.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to you a little bit more about this trade show thing, because I talked to our sponsors about these things as well.
Okay.
We were at a trade show in the fall. And I did pick up a sponsor from that trade show, but I also provided all the floor traffic. Somebody threw a party for all of my 500 friends in the New York City metro area. So that was very nice of them.
Well, you added value to the sponsor.
I did. I provided floor traffic. That's what they needed.
There you go.
So I know the next thing you always like to talk about is this commodity bucket issue. And you touched on it earlier. But it would be great if you would explain the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's just talk about commodities. And I'm talking about products or services that we buy every day. Maybe a piece of furniture, a gallon of gas, a gallon of milk, things that the American consumer views as a commodity. Well, what do we do when we see a commodity and we want to buy it, and we view like another gallon of milk the same as another gallon of milk? Well, we pick the lowest price, right? And some people, like on a gallon of gas, they'll drive 2 or 3 miles because the gallon of gas is cheaper 2 or 3 miles down the road, right?
Yeah.
Or they go online and the exact same piece of furniture, both of them were made in Korea, whatever, and they'll pick the lowest price. That is what it's like to be an American. Now, I've lived overseas. That's not people who are in different countries don't have that opportunity like we do, right? So so I talk about the commodity bucket as it relates to CFO consultants. All right. Now, the commodity bucket means people have heard of you, people meet you, and they see no differentiation between you and the other people. And most of them use the phrase, and it's a terrible marketing term, they use the phrase fraction CFO. So if a business owner talks to 10 fraction CFOs and views them all the same, they put them all in the same commodity bucket. Okay. Or if these a CFO goes out and the worst phrase, Matt, that they can use, the other than a 4-letter word, the worst phrase.
And we won't go there.
We won't go there. But after the 4-letter word, this is the next one. I provide CFO services. That is horrible. I could talk to you for an hour and a half about CFO services. For example, Did you know that there are more than 14,000 CPAs that offer CFO services? And the CFO services of those 14,000 CPAs is a 5 or 6 year staff person who understands QuickBooks. All right, and that goes with the training. You got to know the market. You got to know the terminology. So let's say somebody starts their firm and hasn't done the training, and they tell people, I'm a fractional CFO and I offer CFO services. Okay, they're lumped into the bucket along with everybody else. Okay, and by the way, once you get in the commodity bucket, you can't get out. You can't say, oh, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean. No, if you're in the commodity bucket, you're stuck. And there's only one way to get out, and that is to lower your price, your hourly rate. All right. So we're close to $300 an hour or so, and then we get 6-figure checks for helping to sell businesses. These poor fraction CFOs who are in the commodity bucket, Matt, they're getting $150, $140 an hour, and they don't understand why. And the reason why, the business reason why, is because they're viewed as a commodity. They have no differentiation. Okay, so if you want to avoid the commodity bucket, here's my advice: invest $50,000, $60,000, maybe $100,000, and do branding to make yourself different from everybody else, or join another company that has a very good brand and use their brand. Okay, so the commodity bucket is horrible. Okay, but it's the way it is in the United States. If a business owner could get 10 fractional CFOs, and they get one for $110 an hour, and you use all of them the same, then that's what they do. Okay.
This kind of ties back to what you were talking about in terms of selling as well. You have to sell your value. And when we were talking yesterday, I think it should be clear to everybody that $300 an hour is a reasonable number, because if their services were sold by another firm, to get the expertise that you provide, they would be marking you up double. I told my joke yesterday, Robert Half, they pay half.
Yeah, Robert Half is a perfect example. They pay half.
They actually only pay you, when you're working for them, 45% of what they bill the client.
Yeah, and that's the same thing.
You may be getting the $150 an hour, but they're charging the client $300.
Right. We had a guy that almost joined our firm about 3 weeks ago, and I read his email. He joined a fractional CFO firm that finds clients like Robert Half, right? And they take half. They take 50%. In his email, nicest guy you'll ever meet. I mean, family man, churchgoer, just the salt of the earth. But he put in the second paragraph of his email, I'm terrified on going out and finding clients. So what has he done? He's joined this company is based in Ohio. He's joined them, and they go out and find clients, and then he pays them 50% of what they earn. Now, there's another cost, okay? And I just learned this a few weeks ago. So when they join these fractional CFO firms like the Robert Halfs, okay, they don't call themselves Robert Half. They call them fractional CFOs, so they use the term. But it's the same process. They know how to go out. They have databases of business owners. They have salespeople that know how to go out and sell. They present a contract, you sign, then you sign your life away, right? And they own the client, by the way, too.
They own the client, right?
They own the client.
And I don't mean to denigrate that in our conversations, because they found the client. They own the client.
They paid for it.
That's the way it works.
That's the way it works, right? Right. Yeah, and I've always taught CFOs, if you go through proper training, you own the client. Okay.
Yeah.
But
well, I think that's the key, is the proper training and the proper and you and I have met over the last 20 years a lot of people who really can't do it. There are some people who can't, but it's because they don't get into the training, in my opinion. They can do it, but they don't believe they can do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that is usually the first cut. They tell themselves, I can't do that. So
that's actually where they start on networking as well, Jerry. Right? I'm a terrible networker. I don't do enough of it. And well, the more you do anything, the better you get at it.
To those people, I would say sincerely from my heart, read Matthew Pollard's book, The Introvert's Edge to Networking. Right? That's worth to some maybe worth millions of dollars in earnings. Okay. Yeah. So so again, it goes back, Matt, to what we said earlier. These CFOs have the skill set. they just don't, excuse me, they have the ability, they just don't have the skill. They haven't been taught the skill. So
Exactly.
before going out and just doing it on your own, or instead of paying somebody 50%, or instead of failing, like optimizing your LinkedIn, which is that's such a failure. I call that, by the way, well, Peggy's here, so Peggy, I apologize. I call that LinkedIn hell. You're part of
Terry, the only
500,000
four-letter word
CFOs.
we can use in this talk is cash.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So yeah, you and I, we're speaking the same language, and I've been doing this since '87. I've made a ton of money, right? And I could sell with my hands behind my back, but individually, I'm an introvert. If I go into a room of people, it's hard for me to talk to people. But I can sell and sell and sell because I've learned how to do it, man. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it. Okay.
Yes. And some of it you can learn from books, but I know the firm has always been involved in a lot of coaching of the partners who join your firm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So what we do when somebody goes through it, take minimum 4 days of training, and then they go out and start finding clients. We assign to them, we call now mentors. They're going to talk at least once a week to their mentor. Now, the mentor, what are their qualifications? They're a successful person in our firm. They have closed individually 40 to 60 individual deals. And because they've been mentors for a while, they've helped partners in our firm close anywhere from 300 to 500. When I say close, that means having a business owner pick up a pen and sign a contract. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Close, getting a client, right?
I know originally, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I know originally when I came to your first meetings, it was a little bit informal, but you've professionalized it over the years.
It's very formal, and I get a monthly written report. Yeah, we have formalized.
You've trained the trainer.
Yes, yes, and so my advice is go find a company that does that gives you support. And again, in our firm, we not only have mentors, we have regional leaders, we have peer professionals, we have employees, we have a chief operating officer, we have a full-time graphic artist. We just did a 2-page graphic art PDF for a partner in Georgia. Okay, so you know, you can die the death of 1,000 cuts, but training is paramount. You got to have training.
It is. Yeah. There are things you don't know how to do, and you need somebody to show you.
Well, why waste the time? Why waste the 10,000 hours? Okay, why take?
Because you may run out of cash in the process.
Yeah. Oh, and get discouraged and have the spouse not be happy and the children not be happy. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that's a good segue into the next topic, Jerry, which is the conversation you need to have with your spouse or your significant other, whichever is acceptable today.
Okay. Yeah. We're not here to dictate if they say spouse.
So I have both faced those difficult conversations.
Yes. So my greatest sales job was convincing the beautiful Christine to marry me. And in fact, when she said yes, I was so sure Matt was going to say no. I asked her, "Are you sure? Do you need to think about this?" I didn't buy
never question your good fortune.
I didn't even buy an engagement ring because I knew she was going to say no. So we no, really. So we went.
I took a chance. I had the engagement ring.
Yeah. Why waste money on a ring? So we got up the next day after she said yes. So
that's a great story, Jerry.
It's true. It's so true. Her story takes like 30 minutes to tell it, so that's the condensed version of it. So
we'll do another show on that, Jerry.
I showed her my plan when I proposed to her. I had a guitar, and I serenaded her on a guitar, and then I had a written plan. I said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a Bachelor of Science degree and okay. I'm going to get straight A's, and then I'm going to work for this company called Arthur Andersen. They're the best. And then I'm going to be a partner, and we're going to make a lot of money." So I sold her on that. Okay. And so I was going along. So I'm in that gap between, I'm an experienced manager, between experienced manager and partner. I'm almost there. Right. Now, what I had done, long story short, I had worked with so many private held companies. And at that time, Matt, I was managing 27 privately held companies. Those were my clients, those were my engagements. Okay. And what I started noticing was that partners in the firm and also CFOs at the clients, When they hit their 50s or 60s, they suddenly disappeared. They were replaced by younger people.
Yeah.
All right. So I went to Christine and I said, you know, I always have a plan. Yeah. And you married me because of my plan. It wasn't my looks, right? So yeah, yeah. That's well, everybody knows that. So I said, I want to change the plan. What I want to do is I'm looking down the road. When I get in my 50s or 60s, I don't want somebody that could control my future. I want to be in control because now I have you and I got 4 crumb crunchers and 4 children. And I someday we're going to have grandchildren. I'm not going to let people lay me off when I'm, because Matt, I've always viewed CFOs when they're in the 50s, 60s as the top of the profession. These are people who should not be laid off. These are people that people should just go to them and you know what I mean? But instead well, you know how business works, right? So,
well, I think it's because of our, I don't want to digress too far, but it's the large company syndrome where large companies don't hire senior people, they grow their own. And we only know when we're in our 40s, the large company experience for most people, right? They just know the large company thing. But you were with Arthur Andersen, and unfortunately, the CPA firms don't have a good plan for people who retire. They won't let them work with any of their current clients. And you're just lost. Those are the only people you know.
Right. It was up or out.
It's not a great place to be. So continue the story from that point.
So I told her that I'd like to start this business. And then we had a long talk about that. Her first question is, where's the steady paycheck? I said, well, there won't be one. I haven't had a steady paycheck since 1987 and or W-2, you know. And then her next question is, where are you going to find clients? So I had to be honest with her. Sort of like going back when I engaged, and I had to eventually tell her when she said yes. So Christine, I don't have the ring. You know, she said, Jerry, that's a good thing. Knowing you as well as I do, you'd buy the wrong ring. So let's go tomorrow and we'll get the ring I want. Okay. So now we're at what she wants, which is the appropriate thing. And she actually teared up and she said she couldn't talk about it. She was that emotional, and she rarely gets emotional. She's a very steady person. So I went out, and next evening we went out. I worked the next day, went out, and she had spent the night awake. And here's what she was thinking. It's really fascinating. Her father was a manual labor worker, built freeways, highways. And when he was 55, he developed today we'd call it a disability. And today he would have kept his job, right? Until he was 65 and he would add a pension or whatever, you know. Well, he was let go because he had this minor disability when he was 55, and he never got another job. And that ruined their family, their finances. Her mother had never worked. Her mother had raised 7 children. She had to leave the house and go work at the post office. And that they had a nice house, not great, but a nice, comfortable house. They had to sell it and move into a trailer. So she came to me we went out the next evening. She said, you know, you're right. And I'm sorry. She said, let's not do what my father did. Let's not bring that grief to our family and our children. Let's create a plan where you get in your 50s and 60s and you're just going out and doing what Jerry Mills does. So we just came together because of this age discrimination thing and other stuff. And we had to borrow money to go to take training. I hated the training, but it was the best thing I ever did in terms of getting clients. You got to learn, right? You don't have to love it. Once I learned how to do it, you know, I accused the people who trained me 2 or 3 times. I said, you guys are scams. You're a scam artist, you know, because they would say, well, in networking, you go do this, you go do that, you know. And I thought they were scammers, right? But they weren't. They were very legitimate. So we did that, and we've received the benefits since. And nobody has ever told me what to do. You know, in fact, Matt, I've never even had to tell anybody I'm taking a vacation. You know, when you're a very successful CFO consultant, you just tell your clients, and I usually average around 10. Okay, at one time, I don't put all my buckets all my money in one bucket. So I believe having 10 at one time. And so I just tell people, hey, my clients, I'm just not available. And I tell them, now, if there's an emergency, you can call me. And then I define what emergency is. An emergency is there's a person, a body, lying on the floor, bleeding profusely. And if you don't stop the bleeding, they're going to die. So I've never had a client call me on the weekends or on a vacation. Because if you think about it, in accounting and strategic planning, if you're doing your job, there are not many emergencies, right? Now
Yes.
there's a transaction.
That's really the goal, is to get the business so that the elimination of crises
Yeah,
is one of our goals.
Yeah. So Christina's been my biggest support. Now, what have I seen with Matt, with CFOs who did not do that? I've seen bad. Okay.
Yeah.
They join us, they go out, and then their CFO or their spouse or significant other, whatever, when are you going to get a client? Why is this client not paying you more money? Why are you doing? Why are you going out? All that, and it can not only be a negative, but it actually can lead to a divorce.
Right? Having a plan and having your significant other or your spouse understand what the plan is very important, because you have enough stress on you trying to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
You need the support of your family, and it's the same thing with the networking process.
Oh, absolutely.
People come and check your temperature too often if they don't understand what you're doing. No, really,
that's true. I'm just laughing because it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They keep checking in, and that's stressful in and of itself, to go over all the things you did today. No, I don't have time for that. I'm working.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my thing. But
right.
You're absolutely right. That's what's happened in our networking group, and why I'm so cheered about two things. Number one, the acceptability of senior level people. There's just so few people who know how to do anything today, and it's very true in the CFO community. There are a lot of people who are in their 70s who are still working.
Mm-hmm.
In my life, Peggy's father was laid off I think in his early 50s from
So
Peggy
understands.
A big firm, and very, very bright man, but he never really had a big job after that, and that's sad.
Right.
Taking charge of your own future.
Actually, he was under 50. He wasn't quite 50 when he lost his
my
job.
word.
He was like
I made a minor
49.
mistake. You'll forgive me.
No, but that was important because 50 was like the cutoff at that time.
Yes.
And so he was 49 and he was too close to where they were going to cut him off anyway, and it was hard.
Yeah.
So
I work hard to our goal in the networking group has always been to enable people to work as long as they wanted to work.
Oh yeah. One of my heroes in terms of work is Warren Buffett. He's like 25 years or more older than me, and he's still working. If you're a true entrepreneur like me, you don't talk about the R word, retirement. You let other people talk about that, because I'm so excited about what I do and who I serve. Matt, if you help business owners become multimillionaires, or you help CFOs who want to be consultants become millionaires, other than being with a family and whatever, life doesn't get more rewarding than that to me. That's
rewarding. We just live in such a great time. Peggy and I were on vacation a few weeks ago, and the internet is there. I have an air card for my computer. I did my billing. No one knew I was even gone.
Yeah, we had a lot of advantages today that I didn't have when I first started.
In today's world, you can do these things, and even servicing clients, you can even draw a bigger circle around your where you live and service clients, because you don't have to go there every day. When you started out, you had to go there every time you wanted to meet with them. To do any work in their organization. All right, so we have 5 minutes left. Are there questions in the chat box, Peggy?
No.
No questions. All right. Well, we're open for questions. Otherwise, Jerry and I are going to keep talking. I'm glad you brought it up, because it's a very important conversation, so that you can focus on what you do best, to make sure your significant other and the family understand what you're doing and how you're going about it.
And if I could interject on that.
Yes, absolutely.
The children, until they were like 20, 21, they really didn't know what I do. And they thought I had a job because I was gone and I was, doing things. But I was when I became self-employed, a CFO consultant, I was at everything, all the dance recitals, all the soccer games, all the football games. I was always there. And I heard them over just about last year. They were, after Christmas, the four of them were together with their spouses, and they were talking about, the spouse were talking about their fathers, what they did. And they always said, my children, my dad was always there. I don't know how he got off work so much.
There is a question, Jerry. It says, how long does it typically take someone to get their first client when they join B2B CFO?
Okay, that's a great question. We have empirical data on that, all right? Here's the empirical data, just off the top of my head, I know it. We did a study of everybody who joined our firm from 2018 to 2021, so that included COVID. In our firm, we have CFOs in terms of networking, going out and spending time networking. We categorize them as above average, average, and below average. Now, the average was 3.6 months, all right? Now, the below average people that took more than 3.6 months, what they were doing, Peggy, is they were, a lot of them were, they got severance packages from their W-2 employer, or their spouse was earning money, and they just sat on their butt and they didn't do anything, okay? And now the above average people who are getting a client in 5 or 6 weeks, they start immediately. They just say, basically, Jerry, train me, give me everything I need, give me the branding, the books, the brochures, the business cards, give me everything, and then get out of my way.
Yeah.
Okay. They follow the process. We have a process, it's step by step by step by step. Okay. So they're process-oriented people who want to achieve.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody wants you to rename the name of your books. So
My books, or the book that I referred to?
No, it says, what was the name of the book again that you mentioned? Oh, I guess it was.
Okay. All right. It's a wonderful book. The author is Matthew Pollard, with 2 L's. Well, that's my book, the Exit Strategy Handbook. Okay. But what I was referring to here, can I just show it?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Let me show it. Now, it's sort of odd because I have this Zoom background, and I don't know if you can see it. So can you see it? It's by Matthew Pollard, and it's called The Introvert's Edge to Networking. So my advice, if you're thinking about becoming a CFO consultant, read this book first. Read this first. All right. Now, he's not going to talk you into being a CFO consultant. What he's going to teach you is that those of us who are introverts, of which I'm one, can actually sell better. But we got to do, Matt and Peggy, what we got to do is stop talking about ourselves and follow a process. Listen, document it, go back with a proposal, know their KPIs, do all the things that are necessary. Okay. So it's a great book, wonderful book.
So
Jerry,
just so everyone knows, they can buy your books without joining B2B CFO.
Oh, yeah.
Your books, I found the first one you sent me very interesting. The Minders, Finders, and Grinders.
Yeah, that's in there. Yeah.
To understand a small bit. A lot of the people who are thinking about hanging out their own shingle may not have worked with lower middle market firms.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you need a way to set the landscape. And I thought the way you framed it out in the book was excellent.
Thank you. So I know we're short on time. So we have 2 websites. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see myself. On my left-hand shoulder is b2bcfo.com and then b2bexit.com. So there's a store. Yep. There's a store. They can buy the books, and they just buy them books, and they can have them in like 2 days.
Okay. So another question was, what is the initial dollar investment to buy into B2B CFO?
That is a great question. Here's the way we work. On b2bcfo.com, we have a tab called Careers, the Careers tab. And on that, they can fill it out, submit their resume. I have a FTE that grades their resume. If they pass being qualified to join our firm, we tell them the pricing. We actually have them sign an NDA, and Peggy, we just send it to them. Okay. So, but first they have to be qualified. We don't want to talk to somebody who would not succeed in our firm. We know the type of people in terms of experience that will and will not succeed in our firm. So just submit a resume. They'll know in 2 or 3 days.
Okay, and somebody else asked, I'm going to read this because I can't even understand it. It says, is your typical model for fractional CFOs to help CEOs with an exit / sale of their company and be paid a success fee once that transaction is completed, in addition to a $300 an hour fee?
I'm looking at, it's the discussion we had yesterday about the legality of getting success fees.
Yes.
And I don't think everybody knows about that. So,
Okay.
we'll run over a few minutes, but please, I think
do we have time? I'm cognizant. Do we have time?
Yeah. Oh, no, we have time.
Okay. Thank you for the question.
We can run for another 2 or 3 hours if you want, Jerry. Okay.
I'll be very brief.
Yeah.
If you go to b2bcfo.com, there's a news tab. If you read the last 2 press releases, national press releases, we just won an award for innovation. The second press release talks about 3 companies that we sold in 3 different states and 3 different industries by 3 different people in our firm. Okay. Now, each of those 3 sales, our people had earned more than $500,000 in fees. And then when the transaction closed, they got another a 6-figure check. One was almost $250,000. Now, so we do that, but we do it legally. If you ask for a success fee from like a FINRA regulated broker dealer or the such, they will not give you business, because asking for a success fee is illegal. According to the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, they are the ones through FINRA who regulate broker dealers. Okay. Right. So we do not use the term success fee. We call it additional compensation. Okay. So now in terms of our model.
And that comes from the person selling their business, right?
Yes, or acquiring. If we do
or
both.
The acquirer, sure.
Yeah, we paid more than $250,000. By the way, Matt, to do what we do on the sales side of helping companies sell, we took it took us 16 years, and we invested about $1.8 million. Okay, we're the only company in the nation who can do what we do legally. So somebody who has asked for a success fee, that's illegal. But if you go back, yes, we want our people to earn a high dollar amount, and when the company sells, to get a 6-figure check. We have one who thinks he's going to get a 7-figure check, and internally we just call it the large check. Okay. Now, part of that, the first part of that question was interesting. So, which do we lead with? Do we lead with B2B CFO, or do we lead with B2B EXIT? And here's the answer. We have a sales brochure, Matt, and in the brochure and our website, we tell people that we're strategic business advisors. Now, not all CFOs are. They're not strategic. We are. So the first question we ask as a strategic business advisor, we interview the business owner. We have questions in our brochure. We ask, what are your thoughts? So we're very respectful to the business owner. We're not there to, it's their company. We're not there to do anything. We just want to learn, right? So we ask very politely this question, very humbly. What are your thoughts about the ideal sale or transfer of your company? And then they tell us. If they don't know, we give them one of our books so they can learn the different type of buyers. There's a strategic buyer and a financial buyer and a private equity group, and there's ESOPs. We teach them about the potential buyers. And then what we do is we try to find out, Matt, where they're going. And then we try to, as strategic business advisors, help them go that way. All right. Now, if I was to look at and do the stats, I would say that probably 90% of the companies that hire us have thoughts about selling their company, but they're not ready, and they don't know they're not ready. Okay. They're not even bankable. They can't get an increased line of credit. They can't pass, most of the time, a certified audit. All right. Now, in our software, you go to b2bexit.com and see our dashboard software. We have software that we invented that has 2 patents on it, Matt. We do normalization. We teach our people through our certified training how to do more normalization. We show and how to increase value. And then at some point, we actually do the due diligence. And when a client sells, when a broker dealer or investment banker comes in, licensed, we typically have done 90% of the due diligence. We've been paid, hundreds of $1,000s to do the due diligence. And then if the client signs an exit agreement, we get a 6-figure check when the deal is done. Okay. So I don't know if that answers the question. That was sort
No,
of
it
a
does.
multi-part.
It does.
I think it does.
And Peggy, that was a multi-part. That's not your
I'm
fault.
sorry, I was just reading it part by
No,
part.
no.
Another
They asked-
question there was does B2B take a percentage of the fees? And is there an additional compensation?
A percentage of the fees and additional compensation.
No, I don't think that's the way you work, Jerry, from what
Yeah,
you
I don't
explained to me.
either. I just.
No, they
that was
pay
the
a fee to,
question.
they pay a fee to
They
go
pay
through.
a fee to the broker,
Go
right?
through
They pay-
training. They pay a fee to go through training, all right, and to be on our websites and brand themselves as a
No, that's
partner.
not Jerry, the question is, when a sale is done, the broker dealer gets their fee. You don't take a percentage of that. You're getting money from either the seller or the buyer, uh, as a bonus.
It's illegal to ask a broker dealer for a
Right,
fee,
exactly.
right? So, but it's not illegal for a client to sign a contract that we have, and only we have, to agree to pay us an hourly rate and a fee when something happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the percentage deals, they
Now-
sound all very nice, but they're
Yeah.
not legal.
Now, Matt, if I could explain a little further, because
Sure.
without getting into the weeds, because we do about 90% of the due diligence, and when I say do due diligence, that's with our software, and the documents are actually in a data room. So we have 90% of the documents that a buyer needs that's in a data room, okay?
Okay.
And so the broker dealer user brings in one or more buyers to compete against our clients. When we have done 90% of the due diligence, the broker dealer normally lowers their fee to the client.
Oh, because the work is done.
The work's done. Now, we don't know what the client does or does not do with that fee that's decreased. We just care about what we have agreed and we want to be paid.
Exactly. All right, so
And there's
we've
always-
run over,
there's
we've
always,
run over a bit and people are dropping off.
Yeah.
So maybe
And
that's
also-
something you want to say just to wrap up. I wouldn't get too involved in this exit thing. I know that's the shiny thing out at the end, but it's the hard work you put in to bring the client to that state that they're paying
So
extra
increasing company value. That's what we should be doing, right?
and helping them achieve their goals.
Yeah, achieve their goal, whatever it is. And that's why we ask, what is the ideal sell or transfer? Because they may want to transfer it to management or to children. Okay. So we're not there to put them in a box. Or we have a lot of business owners, Matt, who don't want to sell. What they want to do is they want us to help build them up, and they want to acquire. They want a market share. They
Yeah.
want intangible assets like patents or people or whatever. So it's their company. We're there just because if you're going to be a strategic buyer, you got to know where the company is going. Otherwise, you're a fractional CFO. You're on the low end of the commodity bucket, and you're just there. And by the way, our average tenure with a client is 5 years. The average tenure of fractional CFOs with their clients, Matt, is 9 months. They have contracts from 6 to 12 months. So we're long-term trusted business advisors because of our process.
And that's where you want to be as a fractional CFO or a strategic advisor to a company. You want long-term relationships. Yeah. So I want to thank all of you for joining us on Chat with Matt. And Jerry, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
did